Everyone thought she was angry. Her husband thought she had become difficult. Her family thought she had changed. And slowly, even the people closest to her stopped asking what was wrong. But there was something nobody knew. She wasn't angry. She was simply tired. Tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. But how did she reach this point? Because she had always been the one everyone could count on. If someone needed something, they called her. If there was a problem, she handled it. If someone was upset, she listened. She rarely said no. And whenever someone asked her, "Are you okay?" she would simply smile and say, "I'm fine." At first, nobody noticed anything unusual. She still cooked. She still helped. She still answered when someone called her. But something had started changing. She laughed less. She talked less. And sometimes she would sit quietly for several minutes, without even realizing that everyone else had already noticed her silence. One evening, someone finally asked her, "Why are you so quiet these days?" She looked up. For a moment, she wanted to explain everything. The things that had hurt her, the responsibilities she had been carrying, the moments when she needed support but stayed silent. She wanted to say all of it, but instead, she simply said, "Nothing. I'm just tired." But people often misunderstand silence. They may call it attitude. They may call it anger. They may say, "She's become rude. She doesn't care anymore. She thinks she's better than everyone." But sometimes silence isn't anger. Sometimes it's what remains when a person has explained themselves too many times. It wasn't one big event that changed her. It was the little things. Being interrupted. Being expected to understand everyone, while nobody tried to understand her. Being available for everyone, while having no one available for her. Small disappointments, unspoken resentment, constant responsibilities, and feelings she kept postponing. Every day she kept putting herself last. Everyone else's needs came first. Everyone else's problems felt important. Her own feelings could wait. "I'll deal with it later," she would tell herself. But later kept becoming tomorrow, and tomorrow kept becoming another day. Eventually, she stopped asking for help, not because she didn't need it, but because asking had started to feel exhausting too. She no longer wanted to explain why something hurt. She no longer wanted to convince people that she was struggling, so she learned to carry it quietly. And that's when everyone started saying, "She's changed." But nobody asked what changed inside her. They only noticed the silence. They didn't notice everything that had happened before it. One night, she finally asked herself a question. Why don't I feel like myself anymore? She wasn't looking for attention. She wasn't trying to punish anyone. She wasn't planning to become distant. She simply didn't have the emotional energy she once had. And for the first time, she realized how exhausted she really was. This is where we need to understand something important. Emotional exhaustion doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like irritability. Sometimes it looks like withdrawing from people. And sometimes it looks exactly like anger. Emotional exhaustion is a state in which a person feels mentally and emotionally depleted after prolonged stress, demands, or emotional pressure. It can happen when someone spends a long time giving, worrying, managing responsibilities, or dealing with difficult situations without enough emotional recovery. And when emotional energy becomes depleted, even ordinary things can begin to feel overwhelming. So why did she become quiet? Because when someone feels emotionally exhausted, communication itself can begin to feel like another task. Explaining, defending, arguing, repeating the same feelings again and again. Sometimes a person doesn't stop talking because they have nothing to say. They stop because they don't have the energy to keep saying it. What did she actually need? Not another lecture, not criticism, not someone telling her to just be positive. She needed someone to listen, someone to notice that she was struggling before she had to explain it. She needed permission to rest, permission to say no, and permission to admit, I'm not okay today. But there was something she also needed to learn. She couldn't keep giving everything to everyone while giving nothing to herself. She had to learn to communicate her needs. She had to set healthy boundaries. She had to ask for support before reaching complete exhaustion. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's necessary. And slowly, something changed. Her family stopped asking, "Why are you behaving like this?" and started asking, "What has been difficult for you lately?" That one change in the question made a difference. Because sometimes people don't need to be judged for their behavior. They need someone to understand what is underneath it. So the next time someone becomes quiet, don't immediately assume they're angry. The person who seems cold may be overwhelmed. The person who stopped explaining may be exhausted. The person who says, "I'm fine," may simply not know how to ask for help anymore. Of course, silence doesn't always mean emotional exhaustion. People can withdraw for many different reasons. But before judging someone's behavior, sometimes it's worth asking what they have been carrying silently. Maybe she wasn't angry. Maybe she had simply been strong for too long. Maybe she didn't need someone to ask why she had changed. Maybe she needed someone to notice that she had been carrying too much for too long. So before you label someone as difficult, rude, distant, or angry, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what if they're not trying to push me away? What if they're simply running out of emotional energy? And remember, sometimes the person who looks the strongest is the one who most needs someone to say, "You don't have to carry everything alone."